Sean McIndoe, it has been it's that kind of week. It's that kind of year, Sean, where
right.
the Sabres are back, and now we're back calling the likes of yourself.
We're having old Holmes days here, Sean.
Ron McLean yesterday, and John Shannon, and just it feels so good. Sean continues to write some of the cleverest hockey on the internet at Down Goes Brown. I'm sorry it's been so long since we've talked.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I think we agreed the last time that we would wait until something good happened to the Toronto Maple Leafs before you had me back on, and that was, I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think the Leafs were maybe not bad, but not good yet the last time we spoke. I think they hadn't even, like Matthews is 10 years ago. And it might have, maybe I'm forgetting one, but it might be longer ago than that. And It's too long. Yeah, I think now it's kind of, I don't want to be rude because you're a Leaf guy, but more familiar sort of having this conversation with you in a world where...
Yeah, our tables have turned here.
Toronto's digging out.
The Sabres are ruling the Atlantic.
Two whole playoff series victories ago, that long? That's wild.
As it happens. The Leafs are the Bills. We get that. Or the Bills are the Leafs. Sean, not knowing how close attention you might pay to the NFL, but it's interesting here how like the Bills have been such a phenomenon, and they've lost in the AFC playoffs several years in a row, and now the Sabres come and happen, and there's just no pressure with the Sabre thing. It's the best for a fan.
It would be the best, and you know, I can't help but feel like I need to apologize to all the Bills fans who were just mortally insulted right now when you called them the Leafs. But look, man, I'm sitting here from a distance, you know, as a Leafs fan in Ottawa, two division rivals. So in theory, I should be maybe grinding my teeth a little bit over the success the Sabres have had this year, but I can't do it. It's great. It's a fantastic story. I can sincerely say I've been rooting for you guys for a while now because I know the fan base. You know, we use the cliche of the long-suffering fan base, and I don't know if anyone has ever suffered quite as much over as long a period of time as Sabres fans have waiting for this season where things finally broke in their direction. And it's been great. You know, I've been kind of quietly rooting along, maybe not so quietly in some moments, and it was fantastic to see you guys get in the playoffs, win a round, and now you are well and truly Canada's team because you're playing the Montreal Canadiens. So you got about 80% of this country backing you too. So no pressure, but we're mostly on your side on this one.
That's what I think too. I mean, I'm not there like you are, but I've had the same thought. My brother-in-law lives in Toronto. I'm like, Mike, is it crazy for me to think the Sabres are like Canada's team right now? And he's like, not at all. Everybody here wants you. And you know, at least we're good enough, Sean, to beat Boston out and kind of take down Tampa. Montreal did the deed in the playoffs, but still, like the Sabres, beat them in important games and race to the top of the division. And everybody loves an underdog. And Buffalo is that quintessentially. I mean, I've known from your writing for years, just like you're trying to show your love here, or not love, but just like respect for the fans and the tradition of the Sabres and everything. And you know as well as we do maybe how hard that has been at times with what's going on here.
Absolutely. And I've never been a Sabres fan, but I grew up just north of Toronto, and you know, I'm old enough that back then, you know, Buffalo and Toronto, it was like this little shared culture. We got each other's TV channels, and so, you know, I could watch the Sabres games, and I got used to the voices, and I knew Rick Jeanneret and all of that stuff. There wasn't, at least back then, the two teams weren't even in the same conference, so it wasn't like there was a rivalry. It was, you know, maybe a mutual respect sort of thing, if anything. And then it did eventually get in the same conference. Obviously, they had the one playoff meeting during the Hasek era. But look, I've always got a ton of respect for the fan bases who have been waiting a long time for that win. You know, obviously, as a Leafs fan, it's not hard to figure out where that's coming from, but we've seen it over the last little while where, you know, we finally saw the Capitals get their cup, and we saw the St. Louis Blues, and before that the Kings, and It was great to see, and it sort of feels like the table of the fan bases that are waiting has been losing members over the years, and there's a few of us still left, and I do count the Leafs in there because as old as I am, I'm not old enough to have any memories of the Leafs winning anything. It's us and Buffalo and Vancouver and maybe a couple of others, but it's getting sparse, and we got to have each other's backs whenever we can. So I've been pumping the tires of the Sabres bandwagon over the last few weeks and months, and plan to keep doing it for as long as this run can go on.
Sean, we're both just like you in sharing like the TV channels and everything like that. Hockey Night in Canada, CTV, Channel 11 for the Leafs on Wednesday nights. Again, I'll mention my brother-in-law who lives and grew up in Toronto, and he would tell me how he would watch the Buffalo, the evening news. I'm like, oh, what was that? And he'd say, well, there was always a fire.
Fire on the west side.
There was always a fire.
Irv Weinstein.
I was going to say, it's always what's on fire tonight. That is the nightly news, the old joke that we always had about Buffalo.
So, Sean, forgive me if you've written thousands of words about how you think or what your best idea is to how the Sabres managed to pull off this act here since December, where they just turned on a dime and became one of the best teams in the league. Someone walks into a bar and sits down next to you and finds out that you write about hockey for a living and asks you, like, how do you explain the Sabres? What do you say?
First of all, I mean, that's my worst nightmare, to get found out like that. And ask a bunch of questions that I'm expected to know the answer to. But honestly, part of what makes it a great story is how it really did kind of come out of nowhere. We've seen teams hit a rock bottom and fire a coach and turn things around. Usually that's a short-term boost, but sometimes the new guy just clicks right away. I've never seen it happen with a general manager this way before, where it really felt like that decision to say goodbye to Kevin Adams at long last and to hand the reins over to Yarmo kind of just changed something about the attitude, the culture, whatever it was. It just changed the way the whole team carried themselves, the way that they walked into these games. And I don't know if that's it or if it's just the timing is more coincidental or what it is. But I'll be real honest with you, even when that change happened and the Sabres almost immediately started winning some games, even then I wasn't sold, and most of us weren't. We're looking at this going, oh, okay, it's time for the annual win streak in Buffalo where they're going to roll off 7 or 8 or 10 games in a row, and everyone's going to get excited, and everyone's going to say, finally, the Sabres have figured it out, and they're on their way, and then they'll lose 10 in a row, and that'll be the end of it. We fall for this every year. We're not going to try to kick the football that Lucy's holding this time because we know how it's going to end. And this year, it just never happened. And I mean, they have been an absolute, just an absolute unit since mid-December, basically since they made that change. And obviously, it was always possible to look at this team and see the vision, see the talent, see the pieces, and say, okay, if this and that and this other thing, and if they were all to come together at the same time, and the young guys did this, and a couple of the veterans did that, yes, it could all add up to something reasonably good. I don't even know that we felt like the best case scenario was going to be first place in the division and winning playoff rounds and home ice and all of that stuff.
I didn't.
But you always felt like if it could all come together, there might be something here. It just never seemed to. And at some point you kind of shrug your shoulders and go, I guess it just won't. And that's why it was nice to be sort of pleasantly surprised this year at that moment, whenever it was for most of us, whether it was January or February, when you went, wait a second, this is for real. This is happening. There is no collapse coming. This is actually playing out. And that was the part where I said, okay, you know what? I don't know. I can't figure it out, but let's jump on board. Let's find out if Sabres fans are okay with opening the doors on the bandwagon, and if they are, let's fill it up, because I know there's going to be a ton of support flooding in from around the league.
We will. Thank you for all that, Sean. Sean McIndoe with us. We will be talking about this story for years still, and just trying to figure out how it happened, like you have, and trying to put timestamps on it. Bulldog, it was what for you? Like the 10th win right before New Year's?
Well, they beat Dallas on New Year's Eve, Sean, and Dallas was in the midst of like they lost 4 out of 5 or something. Maybe like the slumpiest slump Dallas had all year was when the Sabres were there to visit them on New Year's Eve. But they absolutely owned that game, and it was their 10th win in a row. And, I like you, we went through this a few years ago, and it was all overtime and shootout stuff, and almost none of this was. There were a couple, but they dominated Dallas that night. And I thought, they can play with anybody.
And they weren't stealing games with goaltending.
Right. I think Dallas is one of the best teams in the league. I think that was borne out, even though they went out in round 1 here. And that was the game for me. I mean, I just thought they can play with anybody. I think they're going to do it. So I was early, I guess.
Yep. That is a great game to point to. I think it is early. It's probably earlier than I got there. I mean, for me, it just felt like when the streak happened, when it started, and there was that moment when you went, okay, well, wait a second. Look at the way this Eastern playoff race is rolling out. Buffalo's got a shot here. The bunch of other teams are struggling. By that point, it was clear Toronto and Florida were taking a step back. Ottawa wasn't quite what we thought they were. Detroit looked great for a bit, and then they started to fade, and you're just kind of sitting there going, there might be a spot here. There might be a spot for Buffalo to get into the playoffs. Sneak in, backdoor it, however you want to phrase it. And then it just kind of felt like closer to the Olympics. You just look at the standings, and suddenly you're going, man, they're 6 points up. Man, now they're 8 points up. They're going to do the, and it was that realization that not only are they making the playoffs, there's not even going to be any drama about it. The drama is going to be about where they finish, and eventually it became, can they finish first in the division? Can they finish first in the conference? But it was that feeling of, there isn't going to be a collapse here because there's not going to be any room for a collapse. They've already pretty much punched their ticket, and once you realize that, then you're sitting there going, well, hold on a second, how far can this really go? And the point for me where I really jumped on board, and this was much later in the season, and it wasn't so much jumping on board as far as, okay, this is a team that can make the playoffs. But it was that crazy Tampa game.
Yeah.
Right, where they had played Tampa a little while earlier, and they had beaten Tampa, and that's great. Tampa's a really good team. They were the big boys of the division, and it was a nice message. But you kind of felt like, okay, it's a long season. Sometimes you catch a team on an off night, and that's what they had done there. And so, okay, the first win, not that big a deal. But then Tampa comes into Buffalo, and it was as if the Tampa Bay Lightning said, okay, we didn't take you seriously the first time. Now we're going to take it serious. Now you're getting the Tampa Bay Lightning big boy game, and you're going to get the full Lightning experience, and we're going to see if you punks can hang with us. And they did, and we got that wild 8-7 or whatever it was final.
That's right.
It was absolutely crazy, and that was the moment where you just watching that game in real time going, man, these guys are not taking a backward step. They are not even remotely, they don't seem intimidated, and I don't mean physically intimidated. I mean like the stage isn't too bright, the lights aren't too bright, none of this stuff. They're ready to go with these guys, and the fact that they won the game was a bonus. But just the fact that they stood toe to toe with them, literally in a couple of cases, was the moment where I realized, okay, this isn't just a team that's going to make the playoffs. There might be something special going on here. This might be one of those seasons we see sometimes in hockey, sometimes in sports, where maybe you got to turn off the brain just a little bit and go, something weird is happening, something special is happening. I don't need to figure it out. I'm just going to sit and I'm going to enjoy it for as long as we get to. And here we are at the beginning of May, and it's still going.
Well, there are phases to discovery and levels of belief. I didn't think they were going to win the division on New Year's Eve when they beat Dallas, but it grew over time. And when they do that to Tampa, then it's just like, okay, they could win the cup. I think, is where you get to when they play that way, or at least come out of the East anyway. There's nobody in the East. I don't know. We haven't really spent a lot of time on Colorado, honestly, Sean. Just sort of
or even Carolina,
leaving them over there for now. Yeah, that's right. But they can win this division, and from there, who's better than them in the East if you can run with Tampa. So Yeah, I mean, I don't get credit for thinking on New Year's Eve they were going to get 109 points on the year. I just thought they'd make the playoffs, is what I thought on New Year's Eve, and it just kept growing as they, did more and more, put together more and more streaks of 8 out of 10 and all this sort of stuff that they just kept doing.
Well, Sean, I mean, you mentioned the Lightning, and they hadn't the week before the Olympic break, they had not played Tampa yet, and so I wasn't either thinking about first place, but they go to Tampa and lose in overtime. They had the lead with a minute left. They lose that game. They come out of the break and whip them. That's the game you referenced. Then they come here and beat them 8-7. Then there's one more with Tampa here when they're maybe tied or just about, and the Sabres win again. And that's where I get there too. I mean, maybe Tampa's not as exactly peak Tampa, but they're close. And, what can I do? And we, how we're alike maybe, there's always sort of this, the possibility of losing. It sort of lurks over your shoulder all the time. Oh no, what if something goes wrong? Last night, it's 4-1 in the second period. I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening again. I mean, it wasn't a perfect game or exactly an easy game, but still a pretty decisive.
They shut it down in the third period, which they did in that last meeting Mike just referenced against Tampa, where they're protecting a lead and just they've learned how to do that, which is
and the Bruins
very professional. Sean, this is a team that blew a 4-0 lead against Colorado last season. They have learned how to protect leads and close games out.
Yeah, absolutely, and you need to do that. And even the series before against Boston, which is a series that on paper you're looking at. Okay, well, this team had this many points, and this team had that many points, and this team finished first, and this team's a wild card, and this team's got home ice. They should win the series. But it was kind of all right, well, maybe we believe it when we see it. And the first couple of games in Buffalo, Boston was right there with them. And then even, I got to be honest, even in Game 5, I guess it was, in Buffalo, which was a big deal up here, as I'm guessing you guys know, the whole thing with the Canadian anthem. That went real viral up here. Everybody saw it. People were talking about it. It was one of those things that it passed what I call the mom test, which is my mom, who doesn't watch hockey and care remotely about it, understood that something had happened and wanted to text me and ask me about it. What's this going on with Buffalo singing the anthem? So you're watching it, and then they go and lose that game, right? Boston plays great. Boston wins the game, and I'm sitting there going, oh no, did the Canadian anthem just take them down?
Oh.
Is this the Canadian Stanley Cup curse? Did we just claim another one, or is this how it's going to go? So I was very happy to see the Sabres wrap it up in 6 and not have to feel a sense of responsibility.
That's funny.
But it's fun, man. You can see it laying out, right? Because the way it's gone, and obviously this series of Montreal, we're one game in, and it feels like there's going to be a ton of twists and turns. We haven't even got to the opening credits on this story, but to serve up Boston and then Montreal. Okay, so we're doing the Adams Division reunion tour. And then you've got Carolina potentially next, which is, that's first of all, that's the Hartford Whalers right there, and then could you go to Colorado and actually finish it off with the Nordiques?
Nordiques,
right? You guys
magic. Could
actually do the full old Adams division, but even beyond that, I know enough Sabres fans to know that the fan base still feels like there's some unfinished business from 2006 with the Carolina Hurricanes, and a few breaks and series and pucks over glass and that sort of thing. So this is the great thing about sports. You have those wounds, you have those scars, but then every now and then a really special team comes along and maybe it can start healing up a few of them. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'd love to have it go that way, man. That would be fantastic.
I've thought about 2006 almost every day for the last month. I've never thought about Hartford and Quebec. I know that if I were playing this on NHL 26, when I got to the semis, I would only dress the Hurricanes in the Hartford uniforms and then only the Avalanche in the Quebec uniforms. I would figure that out.
Right.
But I love that you thought about that here. Thought of that,
Sean.
Yes.
You led here with us calling you because something good happened for Toronto. How about the week that's been there with the announcement and how that was received, and then a day later you get the lottery win? I mean, just seems pretty turbulent. What's your take on all of it right now with the Leafs?
Yeah, it was really something because I mean, even going back before the press conference on Monday, the news of who they were hiring had leaked out a couple of days previous, and the reaction had not been positive. I think it's fair to say, even among the fan base, let alone the various insiders around the league who are plugged in, and there was certainly some reaction there as well. And then on Sunday they announced the hiring, and then Monday is the press conference, and of course we all saw what happened and how it played out and what some of the questions were, and just a real dark cloud over everything Maple Leafs related. I mean, there were a lot of fans that I heard from, or that I saw in various places, saying, "Man, I might be out with this group because, boy, the season we just went through, miserable season, and we don't seem headed in the right direction." And then you look at it and you go, "Man, they're hiring, they're bringing in." We all love Matt Sundin, but a guy with no front office experience whatsoever. And John Chayka, who's been managing a Wendy's for the last 5 years. This is the best we can do. And Keith Pelly, who's not the owner but kind of represents the ownership, and obviously in Buffalo, you guys know what it feels like to maybe start to lose faith in the suits way up above. And just this hopeless feeling, and to the point where I will be honest, when I was watching the draft lottery on Tuesday night, and when I saw that number 12 pop up, my reaction wasn't even to cheer or to jump up and down or anything. I just started laughing because this is the most ridiculous team in all of the NHL, and now they've got the number 1 overall pick, and it doesn't change everything, but it changes a few things. It opens up some doors and some options, and it certainly changes the mood in a fan base where the knives were out already, day 1 for the new front office. And then day 2, suddenly everyone's looking around going, okay, maybe this will work out after all. We all know it won't. We all know that they'll find a way to screw it up somehow, but it was nice to have that little bump of enthusiasm in the middle of an otherwise pretty miserable week. And, I think the hockey gods realized they had maybe kicked us a few too many times when we were down, so they had to help us up one time in order to prepare us for future kickings.
Sean, future kickings. We ended on that note. Sean McIndoe, thank you for all your words, spoken and written. It's great to have you back on with us.
Right on, and all the best from Canada to Canada's team.